Hey guys, Kaido today with another YouTube video, and today I'm gonna give you guys the Kha'Zix matchup guide. It is pretty accurate in my opinion, and there are a lot of different sections, and I hope to give you guys a lot of information on all these matchups. Well, not all, but certain matchups. A lot of them are pretty straightforward, but some of them I'll give you some tips and tricks that I do in my games to have more success in them and being able to win even the harder matchups. So let's get into the guide and go into the first section. So first we got bad matchups. So they're pretty hard to play, as they are bad. The thing is, you can try to be useful with evolves. Like your W evolve is very OP for team fighting and just like skirmishing. Sometimes you're unable to really 1v1 them and just have a good game pace to just duel them. But if you do get ahead in some of these matchups, you can roll them. Like Tilia, Lee Sin, and Belweth, like if they mess up in the game, you can destroy them 1v1. But usually like they are hard because they counter you pretty much. In terms of like maybe like Tilia, like when she jump in, she counters you, right? Like she has her E. Can't really stick onto her unless like you're able to cheese her or get on top of her without using any of your gap closers, pretty much like your E. Lee Sin, you know, can just stat check you, kick you away, and like Belweth is just very OP, very cheesy to play against, and like cringe. Like she kind of just cheeses your camps, and she's very strong from level 1 while you're very weak till level 3. So some of these matchups you have to do some unique. You have to get away with them in some ways. Okay, let's talk about the Tilia matchup more in depth. If you want to win this matchup, to me it's like it's not usually super hard unless I'm playing in Challenger. So if you want to punish it, find good invade timers, especially on second round camps, or you can even like look to invade early. As her first like 3 camps are slow, but her 4, 5, 6 are pretty fast because she has like all her abilities. So some of these you can do is you can do a 3 camp into her like the second quadrant she's going to, or you can just do your buff into their second camp, which is issues I like to do a lot nowadays, because if you get any chunk on them early, you get their harvest stack especially, and like you're able just to track them the rest of the game and just keeps getting those dark harvest stacks. Okay, now we got Lee Sin. So this matchup should just be hard for you if it's even or you get behind, because this champion will stat check you. So one thing, if you do get a lead in this matchup in some way, if Lee Sin messes up, you get a good counter gank off, you get a good invade off because you catch him off guard, which you can definitely, because your champ can win 1v1 in certain like scenarios where, let's say you get first Q on him and he already uses abilities, like they're on CD, or some ways to win the 1v1. You can take over this matchup pretty easily. So, but the builds I suggest you do against this champ is usually like, let's say Cleaver first with Shojin, or Shojin even first. You can do that also, but I think Cleaver first is way better if you're planning to do Cleaver Shojin build. Just because the item itself is way more consistent in terms of like utility and damage. I just like it a lot more first. I think Shojin is a great second item to complement the damage you already have. So that's why I also recommend you move into Shojin, which is one of my favorite builds. It's a very, you only do it when you're very ahead. It makes you very tanky, you have a lot of damage when you do this build, and then you want to go into like Edge Grudge. Yeah, those type of items. Now we got skill matchups, which are usually very feast or famine. There are other matchups that are very similar, but let's talk about these 3 first, which I think can go either way usually. Rengar, classic matchup. To me, I always thought it was Rengar favored. I think nowadays it should be Kha'Zix favored, because I think Rengar is pretty weak as a champion. Especially that Kha'Zix got a lot more love compared to Rengar in terms of like buffs. So usually you want to, as Kha'Zix, you want to avoid him from his level 3 invade. His level 3 invade is usually the best way to win the matchup. Otherwise, after that, he can't really invade you unless he finds some kind of lead. The matchup will only feel bad if he gets kills, just like how if you were the Rengar side and the Kha'Zix gets kills, like then you have a hard time playing, because he should just kill you on your second your next camp clear pretty much. If he just walks in level 6, like there's no counterplay, he would just stat check you. Just remember one thing, that he can full heal all your damage, so keep that in mind when you try to burst them. Try to like play your combo a lot slower if you know he has his like WCDs up, so he can't just like fully heal all your burst damage. Nidalee is a very, it can go back and forth versus a good Nidalee because she has ways to just track you very well with traps and just like poking you down slowly. Her job versus Kha'Zix is to always mark you. So as the Kha'Zix side, you want to try to be cheeky and like find ways to assassinate people before being able to get like tracked by Nidalee. And in Karthus, it can go either way, but my suggestion when you verse this champion is that you cheese him level 1, level 2 if you can, start his other quadrant, or go walk at his blue and just fight this guy level 1, cheese him, get wards level 1, and just try to like cheese him in any way possible, because playing this matchup normally is usually, it feels pretty bad in solo queue. Okay, another Feast or Famine. To me, okay, they don't act exactly to be 50-50, but the reason why I see it 50-50 is because these two champions are very, like, they just cheese, bro. Like, they just do 3 camps and then they go gank like your laner, and like if they pick up kills, you'll just get shit on as Kha'Zix, because let's say for Shaco, like, he's not isolated if he has a box and he has his clone at level 6, like he would just like fight, like beat you 1v1 if you're behind. Same with Talon, like usually this champion runs ignites. If he gets kills early, he'll just stat check you. Like his ults, like usually when you play fight 1v1, let's say post 6, like you guys trade ults, but usually it's better for him unless you're able to get like a first jump on him and get like extra Q rotation off him. Then maybe you can win 1v1. But usually like it feels pretty bad to play against these champions when they're picking up free kills. But one thing that the disadvantage that these champions have are taking objectives. You are better at taking Drakes and Grubs and Herald compared to these champions. So keep that in mind when you verse them. Also try to find out where they start. If you can counter gank them, very good for your game. Okay, next 60-40 matchups. You want to have a good balance on farming and fighting, because for some of these champions, you want to, if you constantly fight, they might get a very big like EXP advantage on you, like versus Lilia, Hecarim, Udyr, Brand, Zara. And versus some of them, you want to be mindful in your 1v1s, like versus Wukong, he has a decoy, so you need to make sure you're able to burn it early, and just make sure that like he might have non-isolated damage just because he might decoy during the fight. Versus like Rumble, just be mindful of his overheats. His overheat can smack you down and you can just get stat checked, so make sure you're paying attention to his heat bar. And now let's go over some matchups individually. Lilia, so it's gonna be the same thing for the next matchup I'll talk about individually, but for Lilia, you want to try invade her early game and delay her level 6. Level 6 is when she can actually deal with you quite well, because if you burn her gap closer, she will just put you to sleep, because it's not that easy to one-shot her. She is a very fragile champion in early game, so if you ever find her, like, you just will kill her in the jungle. Also, be mindful of like when you get hit by abilities, because you get slopped, right? So if you dodge like Q and W, if you space it very well, with, like, let's say you're playing Q-Evolve, you can easily just like kill her and not get slapped. And an item you can buy is Legend Knights. You can buy the second item versus her easily. You can go like Yumi's Legend Knights, and it will make her have a harder time to put you to sleep. Like you can block a Q or W ability with the Edge Knight shield. Next we got Hecarim. This is more of a farming matchup in my opinion, but you do want to somehow find a way to delay his like power farming schedule in the game. Like this champion wants to just farm, and he wants to gank at the end of his clear usually, which makes it very efficient for him. So another thing, you want to try to delay his level 6. Those are like some main things about Hecarim. If you are able to beat him in 1v1 if he doesn't have 3 stacks. So usually you want to try and find him while he's going camp to camp. Let's say like maybe you kill him at his wolves and stuff, because going raptor to wolves, sometimes you might not have stacks. Even Krugs to raptors, he might not have stacks sometimes, or he will maybe have like 1 or 2 stacks. But either way, like you want to try to fight for raptors. I feel like raptor camp steals are very important in general. And it's just like in carry versus carry matchup. Usually you steal raptor camp, like they're 1 camp plus, and they have to play for yours. So if you're able to defend both your own raptor camp after taking his, like that is really good for your game, and it makes it harder for him to be able to get to level 6 fast. And you also are able to just track him, so he isn't able just to get free full clears into ganks and just take advantage of the brand matchup. So this matchup is very free, usually, before he hits the 2 out of 3 item mark. When he hits Liandry or Rylai's Liandry's Zhonya, he is so incredibly hard to kill. Well, before that, if you ever find him, like, he's legit just one shot, like 2 Qs, like 1.5 rotation, 2 rotations, like he's just dead on your screen. And an evade you can do versus him is you can just do 1 camp into his jungle, because his clear is very slow till like the 3rd to 6th camp. Like his first 3 camps are incredibly slow. So if you find this guy on his first 3, if you know which side he starts, his game is like feels very hard to play. Like his clear is not that like fast, so you can track him the whole game, just keep spawn killing him. So he needs a lot of protection in the early game for sure. Okay, easy matchups. Some matchups might can get hard in certain spots, just because maybe they get ahead or they're like well protected. Like Kindred Graves, they can be very free, but they can also just like they can run you down if they get fed. Same with Viego. And then other matchups are like just they're just super easy. Like you would just mog them at all stages pretty much of the game until they hit like a certain break points. But like Kha'Zix as champion is to be ahead, so if you're usually behind, like then it will just feel bad anyways. We'll go over some matchups. I'll tell you like some tricks that I do to win them. But usually like you beat these guys 1v1. I suggest doing Q evolve majority of the matchups. I only do R evolve. I think the game is extremely free, but even then, like Q evolve just helps you farm and just like take any objective on the map, which I think is, to me, Kha'Zix's identity since the beginning of time. His job is not to just play the skill. His job is to create advantages and just be putting a lot of pressure on the enemy team post 6. So let's go through some individual matchups. First, we'll talk about Kindred matchup. Very fragile champion, just like Lilia. You want to invade her as much as you can. She only feels like Kindred will only have edge on you later on into the game when she's grouping more and she has her ult ability to save people, including yourself, and just to bait out fights when you try to assassinate people. But early on, like when people aren't grouping, people are laning and it's like more isolated, like that's when you want to find her in the jungle. Like you want to try to create advantages like that by getting certain camps, like evading them on certain camps and then like just tracking them over and over. So some invades you can do is doing 3 camps into their buff or like their second quadrant pretty much, or you do buff into their second camp, as their first 2 camps are not that fast. Like some champions like Kha'Zix, for example, usually are very fast on doing first 2 camps. But other champions are usually tend to be very slow, where you can do 1 camp and then go invade them while they're doing their second camp. You always be there on time. So doing like Q into E level 2, just jumping on them, getting Dark Heart Sight, taking their HP is insanely good for you. Especially if you steal the camp, you will be level 3 quite fast. You just need 1 more camp usually. It's 3 camps to hit level 3, and then you can just heal back a lot of the HP you lost with your W, because Kha'Zix sustain is pretty good. Next, we got Xin Zhao. This matchup became very popularized when Canyon played it, but the thing is, like, it's been known this matchup was always Kha'Zix's favorite since the beginning of time. Usually, you just want to be able to have a good, stable game till level 6, basically, and you just want to get ASAP for solo queue. But usually, after 6, you cannot lose the 1v1. It is very hard. If you ever find them on certain camp timers, especially like second buff respawn timers, you will just kill the guy and it will make his game very bad, because Xin Zhao wants to play on certain timers, right? He wants to try to create advantage level 3, try to find like find a gank and lane at a certain time and then get objective. Like he wants to translate his advantages into objectives and keep playing with his lanes, right? But if you prevent him to help his lanes and to get objectives with his teammates, then his game will just be very hard to play. It will feel like you're being suffocated in your jungle. So you want to just keep it, find invade timers. Certain camper, let's say second Raptor respawn, his second buff respawn. Those are ways to find the enemy jungler, because like you need to clear your camps, right? You can't always just be ganking. Next, we got Viego. honestly, same thing as Zenzel. You just want to get level 6, get your Q evolve, and then you just find him. Vigo does want to play with lanes with setup usually, so if you were able to find him before he's able to connect with his, let's say, CC supports, for example, then he will have a rough time to play a game. This type of champion, Viego, is the champion that wants to keep winning, and when I say keep winning, is that like, let's say he wins 2-3 fights but then loses a fight. That feels very bad for the game because you want to keep snowballing every fight. That's what I mean by keep winning. Some champions are like that in League. Even Kha'Zix is like that in a way. In certain games, where versus certain comps where like you need to be ahead, and if you were fall behind, like you're just useless. That's like another keep winning example, right? So finding him in his jungle during certain camp respawns is what you want to do versus Viego. Okay, Volibear. I think this is more popular for lower MMR. I know people in my Discord were like, "Oh, I lose versus Volibear all the time as Kha'Zix," and I was always so confused why. This matchup is very good for Kha'Zix. Volibear, all he can do, the only strength he has is ganking. He gets extremely outskilled by Kha'Zix. Like, after level 6, if you ever find him, you kill him. That's the first thing, and then second thing is that any gold and XP you get is just always going to be more valuable on you than on the Volibear. So especially when you get your W evolve later on at level 11, like you just already outscaled him pretty much. And you know, like what do you call it? Tracking versus Volibear is not that hard. If you just are able to ward level 1, or just even ward for the level 3 gank, it's already good for the game because you full clearing is way more valuable than a Volibear full clearing, right? If Volibear isn't getting advantages for his lanes, the champion is just very useless. It doesn't scale. It needs to play to gank. It needs to be able to get dive opportunities, especially after level 6. And if you counter gank any of these like ganks, like he's just screwed in the game. So keep that in mind when you play against him. Mastery. So you want to play around his first 3 levels, as it is the only time he can even fight like beat you. It's if he catches you off guard. But after that, if he's unable to get those cheeses by using these wards that I put at the bottom of your screen, I put blue side and red side wards, then it's hard for him to really punish you from getting level 6 in my opinion, because it's hard for him to really invade on the second camp timers. And after that, you pretty much destroy him. When you fight him level 1, well, not level 1, you fight him 1v1, you make sure to save an R stack for your Q rotation. When you are fighting him, you usually meditate one of your Qs, and if he tries to hit you as soon as he sees your Qs on CD, you usually want to save an R stack for him for that, so he's unable to auto you right while you're stealth and you're waiting for your next Q CD. That is a way to take advantage of the 1v1. And you basically want to push him out throughout the whole game and just play for objectives and play to outscale him in that way. Kayn, another champion, wants to cheese early game. Just because Kayn is able to make the game very difficult if he wants. He's a very mobile champion with this Q. He can go over walls from level 1, and he can just cheese camps. That's how you play Kayn. That's how I played Kayn, and it worked for me very well back then. I remember I got like 2 1k LP accounts pretty much playing Kayn. Like, it was my most played champion, Kayn Kha'Zix, during like season 12, if I remember correctly. And this, like, he is so good at making the game so crazy just because how cringed his form can be. So he's not a champion before his form, but when he gets his form, to me, in my opinion, he's like 2 full champions just because how OP his form can be for certain comps. Right now, to me, Red Kayn is very weak. Back then, either form was strong, but nowadays, I think Blue Kayn is the only good form, but it's only good versus you after 3-4 items when he has way too much damage. Blue Kayn with 3-4 items is insane amount. Like, he has too much damage. Like, it's like actually like unskill OP. But before that, he's like not that insane. Just be mindful of like him outplaying you with your ult though. And for Bruiser, I mean, just make sure you have heal cuts. That's the only way like Red Kayn even looks good in the first place. But like you will always beat him like 1v1 throughout the whole game. And you usually want to go Q evolve so you can keep pushing your advantage, keep finding him 1v1. You never want to go R evolve in this matchup. And yeah, be mindful early game when you try to start your Raptors or even your Wolves. So as long as you know if that's happening, then you're able to play against it and just capitalize on him trying to steal your camps. For these 3 matchups, versus Ivern and Mundo, you want to play a scale. Think about Cleaver, think about Xe while playing against Mundo, especially. We'll talk about Rek'Sai after I talk about Rek'Sai and a different slide. Versus Rek'Sai, you basically want to outscale with evolves and items, as you are better with XP and gold. And just make sure to be able to track her in the early game, because she's very strong in ganking, the Rek'Sai, and is able to kind of mark you very well in the early game with her like W ability that is able to like find out where you are, like if you're in a certain distance, right? But you do beat Rek'Sai in the 1v1. After level 6, you're able to get there in the even game. If you are ever behind, it feels very rough to play, as the champion will just keep finding you and just like try to struggle you out of the game. So some ways to play against Rek'Sai is just to find a ward level 1. Make sure your team doesn't die to the red side. Like usually Rek'Sai starts a red buff, so they 3-camp red side into gank. If you're able to counter gank that, it is insanely good for the game, because Rek'Sai is another champion all about timers. If it doesn't get certain ganks off, it'll like the champ will be useless. So that is the best advice I can give you for Rek'Sai. Next, Ivern. So keep in mind, Serpent's Fang, very OP versus Ivern. W evolve is also very good. You can even do it first if you want. I don't really recommend it, but you can if you feel like the enemy comp is too cringe. Well, another thing is invading. Invading on the first clear can be hard, just because Ivern clears very fast. Though you can look for ways to cheese him. On his second clear, I feel like first clear is very hard, but second clear, usually his camps spawn around like 450 to 5-minute mark. Because if you think about when he marks the first set of camps, right, and then he smites the next one, so they take a while to respawn, right? Compared to the average jungler, where their second respawn clear camps are like 415, right? So for Ivern, you just get your 2-3 camps and then you go find him, right? If you know where he starts, usually he starts wolves. He does wolves blue, and he does blue mark into wolves, and then he goes to his other side. So going to his blue side camps around 450 is like the best time to try to kill him. And remember, any HP you get off Ivern early game is very good, because the champion will be very scared to even like try to help and walk up in the jungle after he loses a certain amount of HP. Barrier flip matchups, because all these guys do are gank in the game. So some things you can do is try to gank him or invade him level 2. You are able to kill them on their second camp. They don't do it that fast, and you're able to get there in time. Any HP you get off these type of champions early, I guess other than Nunu, because he just heals off camps with his consume, his Q ability, is very good, because then ganking is harder if they're lower. And try to get level 1 wards, as it is very good to know where they start, as you are able to kind of track them and then find out where their level 3 gank can be. I mean, Nunu can level 2 gank, of course, but usually it's not that great for him. But level 3 is just better. But yeah, these are some words on your screen that you can put to track the enemy jungler as best as you can. And the last section to look at for the Kha'Zix matchup guide is the Yasuo combos. Individually, Dana and Gragas are good matchups for Kha'Zix. You kind of just run them over 1v1 and you will usually outscale them. But when they're paired with the Yasuo, you want to generally go Bruiser and try to have a mix of HP, armor, and MR, so you are able to not just get one shot. Usually most of the damage are usually the AP champions in the early on in the game, and then later on, that's when the Yasuo starts getting crit items. That's when Yasuo starts doing a lot more damage. But usually early on, the combo is more AP than AD in my opinion. And then afterwards, it's like mix of both, depending on how the Dana Gragas builds. Because I know some Danas like to go tank, some like to go flat AP. So it just depends. But yeah, I recommend building items like Shojin, Cleaver, Ma, Randuin's. All great items versus these champions. Give you HP, give you AD. Ma is very good versus the AP champions, and Randuin's is good versus also. So that's my advice versus these champions.